Okay, hey everybody, we are back. Let me add Keto Bikini Pro, our guest for today. Keto Bikini Pro. We are talking with Natalie today. Okay, I guess I have to type out her name. Natalie. Enabled my VPN, so maybe now it'll work. Invited, okay. Because I've noticed, okay, also here. Hey, it worked. Finally. I've learned a lesson recently. Anytime something weird happens on the internet that I can't explain, it's usually my VPN blocking it. So
That makes sense.
I've finally, I installed the VPN like a few months ago because I got hacked like I don't know how many times in the span of like less than a month. Like
Oh
what
no.
is going on? Yeah, so I installed the VPN and since then it's been quite a long stretch with no hacking, so it worked, but it gives me those kinds of issues. So now I just need to remember when things like that happen. So Natalie, hello and welcome. I'm so excited to meet you.
You too. Another carnivore sister who looks bomb in a bikini.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So, Natalie, why don't we start by sharing your story with my audience and just tell me everything. Tell me how you came to carnivore. How's your diet like? Is it strict? Is it not? What were the main things that you've struggled with? How did you overcome them? Give us all the good stuff.
Cool. So this has been a long journey for me. Really started over 10 years ago when I was in my 20s. I was looking at turning 30 and I was a mess health-wise, right? Like things that I should not have been dealing with at 26, 27, 28 years old. I should have been in the prime of my life and early in my career and all of that. And I had a whole lot of chronic stress. I mean, looking back, it's so clear why I had things like the GERD and the migraines and the ulcers. And it was not just, of course, all the food choices, but the lifestyle, the way I was living my life. Chronic stress, constantly busy, not taking any time for myself, not connecting with myself. I didn't have self-care practices. It was just go, go, go all the time.
Yeah.
Trying to strive for success.
Right.
And that just meant working all the time and chasing all the wrong things. So really for me, this was a very big kind of a 180-degree shift that my life went in. Back in about 2011, I got out of a bad relationship and it was all about healing my heart. It started with healing my heart and healing emotionally, spiritually. It was really a 360-degree change. And so when I started caring,
180.
sorry,
We always mess this one up. I said 180-degree change because 360 you'll go back to where you were.
right, but it was 360 degrees in terms of when you look at I was looking at everything in my life. So
I see.
Like kind of a 360 degree this way. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a 180-degree change, but it was like a looking at everything holistically. And not even intending. Really, like the intention was not to change my diet and to change. It wasn't about weight loss. It wasn't about fat loss. It wasn't about my body. It was about mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And as I went on that journey, I started caring about myself. And then it was, okay, if I care about myself, then I care about what I'm putting in my body. And that was the underpinning of what really changed my health, because it was about my health first. And really what ended up landing me in carnivore 10 years later, because this was 2011, was the start of my health journey. And that was getting rid of junk food, focusing on real food. And it wasn't even, back then, carnivore wasn't being talked about. Keto wasn't being talked about. Paleo was
Kind
kind of brand new on the
yeah.
scene. I didn't even know what paleo was back then. It was just a commitment to taking better care of myself. And the kind of low-hanging fruit that we all kind of know, the chips and the cookies and the candy need to go. It was
Right.
like the very first steps in the right direction.
Mm.
So I share all that to say there is a lot we can be doing for those who are living a standard American diet lifestyle and
Yeah.
praising the junk food and the treats and the sweets and all of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think the all or nothing thinking is what screws up so many of us, myself included, over the years of this.
Yeah.
Now I'm on, now I'm off, right?
Yeah.
I'm off the rails, or I fell off the wagon, or, you know, I'm on this diet and now I'm off this diet. And if I'm not perfect carnivore or perfect keto, then I might as well just throw the baby out with the bathwater and just eat all of it.
Right, right. That's a very good point that I'm going to ask you later about. Okay. And so let's start with, I think I read somewhere about binge eating. Was that a thing?
Yes. Okay. So when I was a preteen, I was actually bulimic.
Okay.
And I was bulimic from 12, 13 years old, on and off, all throughout college till I was a junior in college.
Okay.
And then at 21 years old, I would say, 2021, I just went cold turkey and just stopped because I had a really close friend kind of call me out on it. And we sat down and I've been religious, spiritual, a little bit of both all throughout my life. And we sat down and prayed together. And it was just this experience of, I can't do this to my body anymore.
Wow.
And to myself. So that stopped when I was 20. And it actually came back in 2020.
Oh.
When everything went crazy. You know, between that time and that original shift into a healthy lifestyle, it started with just getting rid of the junk, and then it went into paleo, learning about paleo and kind of going down that road. And I will say paleo was the 80% that really kind of healed almost every health issue that I had. It was, I hadn't even gone keto yet. I hadn't gone carnivore yet. It was the paleo thing. It was cutting out all of the processed food.
Right. And no dairy.
No dairy. It started with no dairy, actually. I gave up dairy for Lent back in 2011, and then did it again in 2012, and then did a Whole30 in 2013. And that was kind of like the tipping point. After I did that Whole30 of focusing on real food only, and all of the paleo, because I started making like paleo chocolates and all the paleo things when it started getting popular. As what happens with these diets, they hit the mainstream and they become fad, and then
and then the paleo pancakes, and we can do maple syrup because that's paleo, and I get it.
I was doing the dates with the almond butter and the chocolate.
Oh, how funny. Me too. I
wasn't at a good body composition yet. Or I would say, you know, I was at a healthy body composition, but I did not transform my body doing paleo. You know, it was transformed my health. But then is when I went keto for my first bodybuilding competition, when I decided that I wanted to become a bodybuilder. And this was like 2015, 2016. And that's when I started doing keto, because I realized I still had, and this is kind of where the binge eating comes in, I still had a major sweet tooth, and I still had issues with over consuming sweet foods. And so Whole30 was a fantastic kind of mindset shift. And I bring that up because that's how carnivore came back. That's how carnivore came into my life. Was a very similar concept of keto changed my body, but keto is macros. Keto is not food choice.
No.
You can do keto and do a dirty keto, lazy keto, you can do all these things, and you can enjoy all kinds of things, and your body composition isn't going to change. You may get to a much healthier place than where you were, but you're still not optimal because you're able to include all these things. And it can be a very poor relationship with food. So what happened with me was, as I got into bodybuilding and keto came along with it, and I got the body of my dreams, it became all about the body and all about the aesthetics.
Right.
And I was hyper focused on my body.
Right.
And that took all the focus away from the health that led me into the lifestyle in the first place. And now it's not about as much about food selection and what am I putting into my body to make my health and my life optimal. And it was more about chasing the body composition. So I was doing all of the PSMF, and it was all about chasing that fat loss at any cost. And on the other side of that, the bulimia reared its ugly head again when, after I went pro as a bodybuilder, after I became a coach, after I had all of this success on the outside.
Right.
And 2020 hit and I was isolated and all my shows got canceled and all of the external stuff went away. And it's just me and myself and my thoughts and my emotions and the things that I didn't deal with. And this was all of more of the emotional management, which I don't know about if you follow Dr. Sivas, but I love Dr. Sivas's stuff because he's always talking about the emotional management system. If we're not dealing with those things, we can be keto all day, but it's not going to address our relationship with food. And that's where the binging came back up. And that's where the bulimia ended up coming up, because now I was so petrified of losing the body results I got that it was by any means get this out of me. Right. It was a very disordered thought process of food.
So what happened after that, after 2020?
So of course, I mean, it got to a place where it was so bad that I finally reached out for help. So I reached out, got a therapist. I worked with a naturopathic doctor, a functional doctor who understands keto, who actually, it's funny, I had a doctor's appointment with him yesterday, a virtual chat. And at the time I was also coaching with Keto Gains. So I had that community there for me. And I did some really deep, I went into some deep emotional healing. I worked with some coaches and did some programs on the deeper stuff, the inner work. I shared eventually I ended up sharing publicly, and that was a huge freedom for me, that it wasn't something I was hiding anymore. So I shared it with my Keto Gains community. I shared it with my clients. I shared it with and it made me a better coach, because then my clients didn't see me as this perfect human being and actually opened up to me about things they hadn't been sharing. And so it took everything just to a different place. Wow. And it was through all of that healing, because I took a year in 2021 where I did not commit to doing any competitions. It was fully about my healing. So I spent a lot of time with my family. I worked on my therapy. I worked with my naturopathic doctor. We did some supplemental protocols to help get my health markers all back to where they needed to be. Because I also did a prep. At that same time that I was in the midst of my eating disorder, I was prepping for shows that were getting canceled and rescheduled all throughout 2020.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I actually made my pro debut as a pro athlete at the end of 2020 as a last ditch effort for me, because I know as an athlete that one thing that I do is if I have a show on the calendar, I will dial everything in and do what I need to do to make it to the show. Mm-hmm. So I did a really short 4-week prep, not the healthiest prep because I had to go fast, but it got me back in the mindset of I am not willing to binge. I am not willing to binge because I also know that I will want to purge if I binge. Yeah. So purging was off the table, binging was off the table. And it's a lot of the things you do in eating disorder recovery, which is you have to follow a structured eating program. Now, I have a bone to pick with most recovery programs. Right. Because they will put you on a standard American diet program. So I wasn't following one of those. I was following my own nutrition program to get to stage, which was very heavily carnivore. Not specifically trying to, but just knowing I had used carnivore basically for my peak weeks, for my shows. Because taking the vegetables out, and this is something that really all competitors do that are, even if they're high carb, low fat competitors, which most bodybuilders are, usually that last week leading up to the show, they're taking the veggies out. They're taking all that fiber out because it's going to bloat. It's going to cause all this water retention. It's going to basically, you don't know how your body's going to look on stage, and you need to make sure you're in your best and you're not running to the bathroom and you're not having to worry about bloat on stage. So it's something that kind of everybody does in the sport. And so I did that naturally. So for me, because I was keto, that just kind of meant keto, carnivore. And so I knew that when I mostly eat just meat, I feel my best. And so coming out of that show and getting into this place of I fell into the trap for a little while of all things and allowance and this whole concept around eating disorder recovery, which is allow yourself to eat all foods. There are no bad foods. I did that for 6 months. And all I did was put on body fat. I was living in this brain fog of like just not being able to see clearly. It screwed up my mental health even worse to the point where I was completely addicted to carbs again. All I wanted was a sugar fix. I didn't feel good mentally. I just couldn't think clearly. I couldn't see myself clearly. It fogged my own view of my body image, my self-image, my confidence. I wasn't showing up online. I wasn't showing up for my clients the way I wanted to. I got to the point where I probably only had maybe one regular client anymore. I mean, I just couldn't function the way I needed to. And this was supposed to be recovery. So after about 6 months of that in 2021, I was like, screw this. And that's when I officially signed up with my naturopath. And, you know, he was someone who worked with us in keto gains. So he understood keto on a level that most, even functional doctors, a lot of the time, functional doctors, naturopaths are better than, right, your allopathic medical doctors when it comes to accepting these kinds of alternative lifestyles. But he especially was ingrained. He had done the keto gains boot camps. So he even understood it from a client perspective. So we got on all these herbal supplements to help heal my gut again, to help all the things. I mean, my cortisol was in the tubes. I had no cortisol. I was not producing any. It was just flatlined all day long. So my energy now, I'm battling against what medical doctors will say doesn't exist, which is adrenal fatigue, right? It's not a thing.
Right.
So I mean, I was struggling with pretty much my health just took a nosedive. And so working with him was the catalyst that was okay. He was like, look, all of the junk has to be out again because you're about to go on this protocol. And we cannot do this protocol and be doing standard American diet at the same time. It's just not going to work for you to heal everything. So it was kind of like you got to go all in for a little while. So the all in really helped my mentality of, okay, we're going back to keto. We're going back clean keto, paleo keto, the way I had done it originally for my health, with my other supplementations and all of that, and the probiotics and all the things we were doing just to get me over the hump. And we only did that for a 30-day, 8-week protocol. And the probiotics were able to come out. We were able to get me back to just a baseline. And after that, now all the cravings are gone. The fog was gone. I was taking adrenal support. So all these things that just kind of got me over to the other side again. And I could think clearly and I could see clearly, and it changed the game. So at this point now, it's late 2021 and I got like 10 pounds off in a month. It was just like my body just released it happily.
Okay.
And now
And
I'm
you weren't
functioning like a human
counting
being again.
calories and stuff.
Sorry?
Well, you weren't counting calories and stuff to drop the weight, or was it just focusing on eating clean keto?
I was tracking my food again so that I could just have kind of that accountability.
Yeah.
But I was not, no, at that point in time, I was not trying to hit numbers. I wasn't trying to hit numbers, and it wasn't about body composition anymore. It was just look at what you're eating so that you're accountable to what your doctor said, which is let's go clean again. Let's be clean.
I feel like whenever somebody has participated in a bodybuilding competition or plan to do it, it's almost inevitable that you're always going to be aware of how many calories are found in the food supply. You know, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, you know, because I work with a lot of clients who don't realize how many calories are found in a pack of bacon. Like you could have, you know, 1,000 calories, or, you know, a ribeye can, if you eat like you do want to be aware, because then it might pinpoint to areas where you could improve. Like maybe you're completely sedentary and like, yeah, you're not going to drop weight that way, you know?
Absolutely. And that's the other thing I've always, I'll say always, but no, probably early on in my competition career, I did focus on calories. But in the last couple of years, it has been about macros. If I'm looking at anything, I'm going to look at macros, but I'm not obsessing over calories. And what I like to tell my clients is when they're like, well, what about calories?
Yeah.
Calories are coming along with the macros. If you focus on the macros, the calories come along with it. But you don't have to think about the calories at all. It is about, am I eating adequate protein for my goals? And that needs to be the priority. And then and this is the beauty of carnivore, right? And really what led me into carnivore was a couple of things. Well, a big thing was, you know, my man, the love of my life, Coach Bronson. And I met him in October of 2021 when I went out to Vegas for Keto Las Vegas, Keto Expo Vegas. Okay. And it was a big jump for me to go out there just to try to, you know, meet new clients potentially and network. And I didn't know that the universe had a different plan. And the whole reason I was meant to go out there was to meet this man who became the love of my life. But he had been carnivore for 4 years. And of course, I'd been seeing a lot about carnivore in the space. And I was like, well, for me, the decision to go carnivore was twofold. One was, okay, now I've already finally gotten myself back into this place of health. But I still have that keto sweet tooth. And, you know, when I go to, particularly it'll rear when I go to an event and they have all the keto booths and you've got all the keto products. I usually in my day-to-day life do not go buying keto products. Anything with a keto label. I read ingredients versus reading the nutrition label. I don't care about the numbers. I care about the ingredients. What is it made with? And just a lot of that stuff is not worth it to me. All of the corn syrups that they're putting in there and the corn starches and the inulin and just all of this artificial fiber just to call it keto. And so I usually avoid that. But when I'm out at those kinds of places and I'm like, oh, I'll have this keto thing and that keto thing. And then I notice very quickly, not only do I not feel good physically, but all of the alarm bells are going off in my brain now. The party is going off. And it's all I want is more of that. All I want is more of this sweet. So many times throughout my journey, I have just done like kind of the sweet detox of like take all of that stuff out, reset my palate, and focus on real foods. And what I love about carnivore, and the reason I went carnivore was, number one, to eliminate that attachment to the sweet taste and the artificial and the extras, all the extras. And then, of course, the big one, which I really should say is number one, was optimal health. Chasing after optimal health first. And knowing that with carnivore, the body results just kind of come with it. It is such an easy way to live.
easier when you're not battling an addiction, 100%, because the moment you eat something addictive, you just want more of it. You know, it's not going to satisfy you. It's just going to stimulate a greater need for it. And yeah, I love that you said that, and that's what I work with all my clients. I always encourage them to cut out the last bit of artificial sweeteners, you know, and they report that much better adherence, they feel better, and inflammation drops too. That's a major thing too. I was wondering, what in your opinion led you to overcome GERD? Do you still suffer with GERD? Do you still have bouts of it? Is it gone? What do you think was the treatment for it?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so a couple of things. I don't have it at all anymore. Okay, a couple of things. I had low stomach acid, and for years I did not know that. I never knew anything about stomach acid or enzymes, digestive enzymes, until I started competing. Is this crazy? Like for at least a decade, I had a GI doctor that I went to regularly since I was maybe in my teens, because I had these issues. I wore an acid monitor in high school for 2 days for them to diagnose my GI problems, right? Which they said for all those years was high stomach acid. So I was on proton pump inhibitors, I was on acid blockers for years. And what they told me was, just take these. You're fine. They didn't tell me anything about my food choices. They didn't tell me anything to change with my diet or lifestyle. They just told me to take these acid blockers. So I was popping Tums, I was popping Pepto-Bismol, I was popping, you know, all of those quick things all the time to manage it. And I was taking omeprazole, you know, Prilosec, all those things for many, many years.
Okay.
And then it was not until I competed where I bought a guide from a pro about basically how to do a competition prep. And she had all these supplement recommendations in there. And at the time I was thinking supplements meant steroids. I didn't know the difference, right? And so I just kind of avoided that for my whole first prep. And then it wasn't until the very end when I was struggling to digest my foods. And at that point I was only eating very small number of foods. It was like turkey breast and egg whites and like things like that. And I was like, why can I not digest anything? And then I read through her supplement protocol again, and I learned about digestive enzymes. And at the time she was talking about betaine and HCl, which now I take with I still to this day I take with all my meals. We tried because Bronson's like, I really think that after a while on Carnivore, you're going to be able to phase those out. So early on, because I officially went all in on Carnivore last January, so it's been almost a year. Early on, I tried taking them out, and it just wasn't. It was too soon. So I haven't tried it again yet. So I still take betaine HCl and digestive enzymes. With my meal.
Here's my recommendation. I think you might be able to get off of them maybe if you try to do a lion diet for 6 weeks, you know, maybe even less. I think it might be still some food sensitivities that could trigger that. Could be eggs, could be cheese. I don't know. You're probably not doing dairy. I'm not sure.
No, I usually don't do dairy, very rarely.
Yeah, but here's the thing. That rare day that you do have it, it can last for a few days afterwards.
So that's like every few months I might have yogurt.
Okay, so maybe that's
cheese.
Not it.
Usually, usually I avoid the dairy. But I do have, I did take the eggs out for a little while early on. But I haven't ever done, and here's the thing, I have never done a pure lion diet. I have had coffee from day one. I've never taken coffee out. And I love my coffee, but I have always had in the back of my mind, I've tried it before. I was like, I'm going to give up coffee. And then I'm like, it's not worth it. Life isn't worth it without coffee. But I am very much a big proponent. I'm a big proponent of anything you're too attached to, you probably need to take out for a little while. So I've always had it in the back of my mind that eventually I do want to try doing a pure lion diet, take the coffee out entirely, and just meat, salt, water.
Yeah, just test it out, you know. I think you would learn so much about yourself, and maybe, you know, maybe you might not need to take those anymore, you know, not even the betaine,
That
HCl
I
or
would really
anything.
love, because I tell you what, it adds up. All these years I've been using that.
It's true. What have your symptoms been for you to feel like you have to take, you know, either Tums or the betaine? Like, what are the common symptoms?
Well, now, because back when I was doing Tums and all that, that was when I had the really bad acid reflux. But I was taking all of those acid blockers, so I just didn't have like any acid. You know, I wasn't producing stomach acid.
Have
So,
symptoms because you were taking the
oh
pills.
yeah, I mean, I got off all of that over a decade ago. But and then the HCl, the enzymes, I didn't start until probably 2016, 2017. But now, so really what it was that initially actually diagnosed it was when I started working with a naturopath in 2018. And I was having, and this is still to this day, if I take it out, this is what I will experience. I will not feel fullness with a meal. Like, I won't get full. And then 4 hours later, I'm completely distended and stuffed, like as if I just ate a meal. So there's just, it's slow gastric emptying. It's not emptying. It's like I get the feelings of fullness hours after a meal.
Delayed. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel heartburn as well, or tightness in the throat,
No,
or, you know,
I
sore?
don't experience that ever anymore.
Okay, but in the past though, yes, and now not
Not
anymore.
at all.
So it's, I guess the intensity has dropped dramatically compared to what you've been through before, and that's all a testament to changing your habits, changing your food. But let's talk also a little bit about the migraine. What do you think has been most helpful? Are you still struggling with that? Any
No,
advice?
that's another thing. So the stomach ulcers, the migraines, the GI, really all of the chronic illness things that I was dealing with in my 20s really went away. I'll tell you what, 3 months on paleo. Because when I first went paleo, it was
Wow.
not all the treats. It was not all the,
Yeah.
it was clean eating. And it was, okay, I would do sweet potatoes, but it wasn't in excess.
Yeah.
I would do like fruit, but it wasn't, and nothing was in excess. It was about eating food in its pure form in a regular size, you know, not over consuming. So really, I truly believe it was a few things. And I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner as well. And it's interesting. I waited years to get that certification. I didn't do that until last year. And by the time I went through it, I was like, yep, pretty much everything I read and everything I was studying, I was like, yep, 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 been doing all this for years, right? It's just something telling me specifically to do it. So one of the big things they talk about in NTP is about the way in which you eat. So eating slowly, chewing your food. It's the vagus nerve, right? It's about eating in a parasympathetic state. And these were things, when I think back to, not only was I eating all that junk, but I was eating fast. I was eating at my desk at work for years. I would eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner at my desk, at work, shoveling things in and going about my day. So there was no slowing down, chewing my food, you know, allowing the digestive process to happen. So truly, I believe a lot of those things were connected to this eating on the go and eating grains and eating dairy when I was eating dairy, but especially the grains and the sugars, more so than anything. I think those are the two biggest things. If I'm ever thinking about, I want to indulge on something, grains and sugars are at the bottom of that list if it's made with any, or anything artificial.
Right. Do you think any supplements also helped for migraine? Do you still get any migraines at all?
No, not at all. It's rare that I will even get a headache. If I get any kind of headache now, I know immediately It is an electrolyte hydration issue.
So true.
That is it.
It's so true. Yeah, when people, I was having, I can't remember who, oh, it was Alan Reeves that I interviewed. He's a keto bodybuilder. It's on my channel. And he was talking about how he would do like carb refeeds and carb cycling for a while, and then realized every time he would do that, like on a Monday, he would get headaches because, you know, he'd have all the carbs, and then that caused the electrolyte imbalances to happen once he took them back out. And so now he doesn't do that anymore, and he's like constantly keto.
Oh my gosh,
and no more.
That's what I tell people is don't do the carb cycling. Of all things, not only will it absolutely throw off your fluid balance, and you'll be back and forth on this readapting every single week. You're not letting your body adapt, fat adapt. So it's still going to try to go back to those carbs for energy every time, which is why so many athletes say, oh, keto's terrible. I hate the way I feel on keto. Well, it's because they're only giving it a week or two. And they're never fully adapting. So I always say, just don't do that. And then the other thing is, it's keeping you addicted. It's keeping you addicted. You're going back every week.
Yes.
Your body's just going to, like, your brain, it's not your body, it's your brain is telling you, I need sugar, I need sugar, I need sugar. So to me, it's not worth it.
I agree 100%. It's like overdose. Like for me, I've cut out caffeine for a year and a month now.
Oh, wow.
And that also took care of my headaches. And that was like an additional layer. And for me, like if I ever have a thought of I'm gonna drink coffee, I just think right away, I was like, oh, I know, like if I have a cup of coffee today, I know that I'm gonna go back into that cycle. It's just, it really is an addiction. And people can understand that in certain instances that those things are addictive, but they struggle to understand just how addictive carbs and sugars are. It's like they don't take it seriously. And they'll, you know, so it keeps them in that cycle all the time. And it's like, you got to give yourself a break for at least a month, 2 months, and then you will never ever want to break that streak that you've accumulated, you know?
The only time I ever struggle with cravings is when I'm doing protein treats, because now that's the one thing, like, okay, if I'm going to do something that's not, I'll say not purely carnivore, because it's beef isolate, but it's not, right? It's not in its natural form. It's not meat. It's not, right. It's still processed food. Protein powder is a processed supplement. And it should be treated as a supplement if you're using it, not to replace meals and things of that nature. So when I'm doing it, I really only do it to replace dessert. If I'm like, okay, I really want to have dessert, then I'll make a protein dessert or something like that. And then I want more. Same thing. And it's just stevia sweetened. But it's enough. So I tell people, even the natural sweeteners, it's still giving you that hit. And our brain does not distinguish the difference. The sweet taste has just as powerful an effect as, you know, you can say, oh, the scientific studies say that this sweetener is not having an impact. Well, first of all, eventually it will. I do believe eventually science will come up, will catch up, and it will be able to show that. But screw the science. Like, let's talk about what's happening in your day-to-day life. Because I don't need to wait for a study to tell me what's going on in my body. If I'm paying attention, which I like to tell my ladies, become the CEO of your body and your journey. The most powerful thing you can do is know thyself, mentally, emotionally, physically. Pay attention to how your foods impact you. And I don't even want to say foods, the things you're putting in your body. Because
that's the best study right there.
If it's not food, it's not food, right? These things are not food.
Yes. I love it. 100%. We do have the studies to show, you know, like even stevia has been used as a contraceptive. Erythritol literally kills flies.
That blows my mind.
Oh my God, there's a ton of research that shows really bad effects. Stevia also messes with your gut bacteria, gut microbiome. And so and those are like the good ones. Like imagine what really happens with Splenda.
Oh my
you know,
oh my goodness. And the erythritol and the xylitol, just terrible.
Yes. Yeah. The erythritol, what either the erythritol or the xylitol. You literally add it to a jar filled with fruit flies and it kills them all off.
Wow.
So yeah, like a kid discovered that by mistake for like their for their science project at the end of the year, and then his dad was like, "This is interesting. Let's publish this," and they published it in a journal. It was a few years
Wow,
ago.
that's
They're like, let's start
fascinating.
using that as a natural pesticide and let's patent it and blah blah blah. So really crazy stuff. But thank you so much, Natalie. Do you feel like we've missed touching upon something important that you would like to share?
I think it's all really just kind of bringing it all full circle is, like I said, get to know yourself, because a lot of what I see out there, really, what pains my heart
Mm,
is all the people out there just spinning their wheels and so confused about what to do, right? Because when I started, and probably when you started this lifestyle, there wasn't so many voices out there. It was pretty clear what to
yeah,
do. And this is another reason why I really love Carnivore, because it's still pretty darn clear. Yes, there's, people doing different macro ratios and all that. I say throw all that out the window and just focus on, I would encourage anybody to start with a food diary. Write down what you're eating, write
yeah,
down how you're feeling,
yeah.
write down your bowel habits, get to know yourself and how these things are impacting you. It's the most powerful thing that you will ever experience. Because when we're out there saying, well, what's the perfect macros and how does this person do it and how does that person do it? It doesn't matter. What matters is what's going to work for you. And when I say work for you, I don't mean fat loss or weight loss. That's just one tiny little tip of the iceberg. Focus on your health, mental, physical, emotional. That's where all the healing really is. And you know what, Sarah, you have now like really planted the seed for me. It's about to be the new year. I'm turning 40 in February. So I always think, okay, we have the new year and then we have my birthday. Lion diet. Lion
I,
diet. The seed has
it's
been
worth it.
planted. I may be doing a personal challenge
Yeah.
early in 2023.
Oh, that would be great. If you do end up doing it, I would love to hear about it. I'm sure I'll hear about it if you share the results.
Absolutely. And I'll be all over your channel and the things you share, because I want to hear more about all these studies and all these cool
That's
things that are mind blowing that I haven't
awesome.
had in my existence.
Awesome.
So thank you for your
Thank
time and having me on today.
thank you so much, Natalie. I've been so excited to meet you, and finally I have. Where can people find you and connect with you?
Sure. So I'm pretty active here on Instagram at the Keto Bikini Pro. And really where I do most of my educating is on my YouTube channel, which is still new, Keto Bikini Secrets, and
Okay.
mostly in my Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group. Sorry, guys, it's for the ladies only. It is called Keto Bikini Secrets for Badass Boss Babes. And I go live every Monday there with a masterclass on a different topic of keto and fitness. So that's really where I do most of my educating right now.
Love it. I'm going to save this and I'm going to post it on my YouTube channel. So I will link everything also below so that people can find you easily for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Let me see. We think we have a question here. Tammy loves fragrances. Unpasteurized milk products. Are these okay to consume on a carnivore diet? Again, dairy and eggs are part of the top 7 most common food sensitivities on the planet. And so this is why I recommend everybody has to go through at least a phase of a lion diet, at least 6 weeks. I know most people say 30 days. I think 6 weeks is better. It could be even 3 months, but I think by the 6-week mark, you'll have a pretty good idea if you have a food sensitivity to dairy or eggs, maybe even bacon, or pork. So it's just a good idea. And this doesn't mean you'll never ever for the rest of your life be able to touch those foods. It just means that maybe your gut needs a little bit of downtime where it needs to it needs to heal a little bit, and then eventually you can go back and reintroduce those foods. So that's my take on that. I can't say like dairy, as long as it's unpasteurized, is good for everybody. Like, no, dairy is still relatively a very recent addition to our food supply, very recent. And newer studies are showing that it's even much more recent than what we've been led to believe. So
And
That's
actually, that connects to my health journey as well, because the other thing I used to battle with all the time was
yeah.
chronic sinus infections. At least 4 times a year. It was like quarterly. I would just end up with another one. And
Yeah.
every time I eat dairy now, and we even tried raw, we got the raw dairy. It's
Doesn't
almost
work.
immediate. The sinus
Hmm.
congestion, it
Have you
starts with
tried
the sinus congestion.
dairy? That's the only other thing that you could try. Have you tried A2 dairy from A2 cows?
I imagine, I mean, where we got this raw was from Sally Fallon's farm. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Weston A. Price Foundation.
Yeah,
So I'm fairly positive that it would have been
it
A2
would
cow.
have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, dairy is so problematic for so many people. So it's just a good idea to take it out and see if that's the root cause of those symptoms, you know, because it might not be worth it to include it for that little bit of, you know, pleasure. But then if you're suffering all the time. So
Self-experimentation is the best way to learn.
that's the best study. That's exactly awesome. Thank you so much, Natalie. Thank you so much for coming over and sharing your experience with us. I am so happy I got to meet you, and I'm sure that we'll have plenty more talks in the future.
For
And
sure. Happy holidays.
yeah, happy holidays. I'm excited. Look at my nails, so festive.
Oh my gosh, I
I
gotta
know.
do that. So much
I'm
fun.
making sure they're gonna last for Christmas Eve. Those are press-ons. So if I fall off, then I'll put them back on.
That's
You're
so
gonna last
funny.
till Christmas.
I was
What?
totally gonna mention the nails because I got mine done with like the SNS, and it is now like growing out. And I'm like,
I
maybe
said
I'll get
that.
some press-ons
What's
for
that?
Christmas.
What is SNS?
It's the dip.
Oh,
It's like
dipping powder. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes, yes. Oh, okay. So they're gonna laugh.
But they're pulling my hair right now because they're growing out. So I'm gonna have to do some press-ons or something for Christmas, something
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, I know. It saves so much time. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for sticking with us. And if you are on YouTube, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.